Early morning light spreads slowly across the corporate parking lot, soft and pale, like the world itself is still waking up. A thin layer of fog hangs low over the ground, drifting between rows of luxury cars parked in perfect order. Everything here speaks of success: polished metal, tinted glass, quiet confidence. At the far end of the lot, away from attention, a single man pushes a janitor's cart. His name is Daniel Parker, 44 years old, single father, invisible to most people who pass him by. His shoes are worn, his uniform faded from years of honest work. He moves quietly, carefully, as if he has learned not to disturb a world that never really noticed him anyway. Daniel stops beside an old car parked alone near the fence. A 1967 Mustang. The paint is chipped. The body shows scars of time. To others, it looks like junk, but Daniel's eyes soften when he looks at it. This car is not abandoned. It is not forgotten. It is a memory, a promise, a piece of his past he refused to let die. In the distance, expensive engines start one by one. Executives step out of sleek cars, laughing, talking about numbers, deals, futures worth millions. None of them look his way. Daniel rests his hand gently on the hood of the Mustang. For a brief moment, the noise fades. The world becomes quiet. Because in that silence, Daniel knows something no one else here does. Sometimes, the most powerful stories are parked in the corners, waiting for the right moment to be heard. Morning conversations grow louder as executives gather near the entrance of the building. Polished shoes click against the pavement. Laughter echoes, sharp, confident, careless. A group of investors walks past Daniel's Mustang. One of them stops. "What's that old junk doing here?" The question is followed by laughter. Not cruel enough to sound violent, but sharp enough to leave a mark. The CEO joins them. She glances briefly at the car, unimpressed. "That thing," she scoffs. "It barely belongs in a scrapyard." More laughter. Daniel hears every word. He keeps his head down, keeps pushing the cart. He has learned something over the years. Some people don't need answers. They need silence. Still, the words sting. Not because they insult the car, but because they remind him how easily people judge what they don't understand. Daniel grips the handle of the cart tighter. Once long ago, he stood in rooms just like this, presenting ideas being heard. Now, he is invisible again. But invisibility has its advantages. Because no one notices the calm confidence in his eyes, or the quiet truth resting just beneath the surface. And none of them know. They're laughing at something far greater than themselves. Daniel's phone vibrates softly in his pocket. He stops walking. For a moment, the noise around him fades into the background. He pulls the phone out and reads the message. "Dad, don't forget. Science fair today. I'm nervous." It's from Noah, his son, 10 years old. Daniel smiles just a little. That single message carries more weight than all the laughter combined. More value than the suits, the cars, the building behind him. He types back slowly. "I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Daniel slips the phone away and exhales. Everything he does, every sacrifice, every quiet humiliation, it's all for that boy. Noah doesn't see a janitor. He sees a hero, a teacher, a father who never quit. Daniel straightens his posture and continues working. Because no matter how small the world tries to make him feel, at home he matters. Daniel Parker wasn't always a janitor. Once he was an engineer, a brilliant one. He studied systems, energy mechanics. He believed machines could change lives, not just make money. He believed innovation should serve people, not replace them. But life doesn't always reward belief. When Noah was 2, Daniel's wife walked away. No explanations, no second chances, just silence. Suddenly, Daniel was alone, with a child who needed him more than ambition ever did. He quit his job, took whatever work he could find, cleaning floors, emptying trash, starting over. People assume janitors are uneducated, unambitious. They're wrong. Daniel didn't fail. He chose. And every night, when Noah slept, Daniel still dreamed, quietly, patiently, about building something meaningful again. Not for recognition, not for revenge, but for a future his son could believe in. The Mustang sits quietly at the edge of the parking lot, but its story is anything but silent. This car once belonged to Daniel's father, a man who believed in working with his hands, a man who believed that if something was broken, you didn't throw it away, you fixed it. When Daniel was 16, his father handed him the keys for the first time. "Take care of her," he said. "She's old, but she's honest." Years later, after his father passed away, the Mustang was all Daniel had left. Not an inheritance of money, but of values. While others spent weekends resting, Daniel spent nights rebuilding, replacing rusted parts, rewiring systems, listening to the engine like it was breathing. Every bolt tightened carried a memory. Every repair carried grief. This car wasn't about speed. It was about patience. And somewhere between the grease-stained hands and sleepless nights, Daniel didn't just restore a machine. He rebuilt himself. Years ago, before the janitor uniform, Daniel stood in a conference room holding blueprints. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from hope. He had designed something different. A hybrid engine, efficient, affordable, environmentally responsible. Not flashy, not loud, but revolutionary. He spoke about reduced emissions, lower costs, long-term sustainability. The room listened but didn't hear. That's too risky. The market isn't ready. It won't impress investors. Daniel walked out that day with his ideas intact, but his future uncertain. They never filed the patent, never saw the value. So Daniel kept the design in his mind, in his notebooks, in his heart. And one day, he built it himself. Life doesn't always collapse loudly. Sometimes it fades quietly. Daniel remembers the night Noah's mother packed her bags. No jilling, no acquiescence, just distance. Daniel held his son as the door closed behind her. From that moment on, everything changed. There were bills to pay, diapers to buy, nightmares to calm. Dreams had to wait. Daniel traded his career for stability, his ambitions for bedtime stories. And he never regretted it, because when Noah smiled, the world made sense again. Every night, after the city falls asleep, Daniel's world begins. No applause, no audience, just a quiet garage behind his small apartment. The smell of oil fills the air as he rolls up his sleeves. His hands move with confidence, measured, precise. Years of knowledge flow through his fingers without effort. This is where the engine was born. Piece by piece, mistake by mistake, lesson by lesson. Daniel works under a single hanging bulb, its soft glow reflecting off metal parts scattered across the floor. Some nights, exhaustion nearly breaks him. Other nights, hope keeps him awake. He listens closely to the sound of every adjustment. One wrong vibration could ruin months of work. But Daniel doesn't rush, because this isn't just engineering. This is belief. Outside, the world sleeps. Inside, a future is being built, quietly, patiently, without permission. Morning arrives again. Daniel stands beside the Mustang in the parking lot, watching reflections ripple across its windshield. The laughter from earlier still echoes faintly in his memory, but it no longer matters. Something inside him has shifted. He looks at the building, the people, the power, and for the first time in years, he feels ready. Not angry, not bitter, ready. Daniel checks his watch. Noah will be arriving soon. Today isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about being honest with himself. He places his hand on the hood again, steady and calm. This car has waited long enough. A small figure appears at the edge of the parking lot, backpack too big for his shoulders, shoes slightly untied. Noah. He walks toward his father, eyes wide as he notices the crowd near the entrance. "Dad, what's happening?" Daniel kneels, straightening Noah's backpack. "Nothing important," he says gently. But Noah looks at the Mustang, then at the people. They were laughing, weren't they? Daniel pauses. "Sometimes people laugh when they don't understand," he says. Noah nods slowly, then smiles. "I know what's inside the car." Daniel looks at him, surprised. "You do. You built it," Noah says proudly. "Like you taught me." In that moment, nothing else exists. Noah turns toward the group of adults. "My dad made the engine," he says clearly. The laughter stops, briefly. Someone smiles politely. Another looks away. A few don't believe him. Daniel feels the instinct to stop Noah, to protect him from disappointment. But Noah stands firm. Dad says real value isn't always loud. Daniel's throat tightens. Because children speak, truths adults forget. Noah looks up at his father. Dad, should we show them? The question hangs in the air, fragile and powerful at the same time. Daniel hesitates. For years, he learned to stay quiet, to avoid attention, to survive without being seen. But this moment isn't about pride. It's about truth. He nods. Just for a moment. Daniel steps toward the Mustang. His fingers curl under the edge of the hood. The metal is cool, familiar. With a slow, deliberate movement, he lifts it open. The conversation around them fades. People lean closer. What they see doesn't match what they expected. The engine is clean, modern, precision-built. No rust, no shortcuts. An engineer in the crowd steps forward, eyes narrowing. He recognizes craftsmanship when he sees it. This isn't factory, he mutters. Daniel says nothing, because the machine speaks for itself. Daniel reaches into his pocket. The key feels heavier than it should. He turns it slowly. For half a second, nothing. Then the engine comes alive. Not loud, not aggressive. Smooth, controlled, perfect. The sound cuts through the parking lot like a confession. Conversations stop. Phones lower. Even the CEO turns fully toward the car. This isn't the sound of junk. This is the sound of intention. The engineer steps back, stunned. This doesn't make sense, he says. Daniel meets his eyes calmly. It works, he replies. Noah grins. Because he's heard this sound before, late at night, through the garage wall, while falling asleep, knowing his father was still building something special. Daniel reaches into his pocket. The key feels heavier than it should. He turns it slowly. For half a second, nothing. Then the engine comes alive. Not loud, not aggressive. Smooth, controlled, perfect. The sound cuts through the parking lot like a confession. Conversations stop. Phones lower. Even the CEO turns fully toward the car. This isn't the sound of junk. This is the sound of intention. The engineer steps back, stunned. This doesn't make sense, he says. Daniel meets his eyes calmly. It works, he replies. Noah grins. Because he's heard this sound before, late at night, through the garage wall, while falling asleep, knowing his father was still building something special. The engineer kneels beside the car, studying every detail. Hand-built components, custom calibration, a design that shouldn't exist, yet does. He looks up slowly. Who designed this? The parking lot feels smaller now. Daniel takes a breath. I did. Silence spreads. The CEO's smile fades. Her confidence wavers for the first time. You built this? She asks. Yes, Daniel says. Years ago. Recognition flickers in her eyes. She remembers. A rejected proposal. A dismissed engineer. The weight of that decision settles heavily on her shoulders. The engineer stands. This design, if scaled, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Everyone understands. The CEO's phone buzzes. A notification flashes, an old internal file. Daniel's name. Her voice trembles. We dismissed you, she says quietly. We were wrong. Daniel looks at Noah, then back at her. I didn't build it for you, he says. I built it because it mattered. The parking lot that once echoed with laughter now stands silent. Because sometimes the biggest mistakes aren't loud. They're ignored. The silence feels heavier than the laughter ever did. Daniel closes the hood gently, as if sealing a chapter of his life. He wipes his hands on a worn cloth, then looks down at Noah. We're late, he says softly. The CEO steps forward. Daniel, please. We need to talk. Daniel pauses, but doesn't turn around. For years, he says calmly, I waited for someone to listen. Today, I don't need that anymore. He takes Noah's hand. Together, they walk toward the Mustang. Daniel opens the door, helps his son inside, and takes one last look at the crowd behind him. No anger, no pride, just peace. The engine starts again, steady, confident, and the Mustang rolls forward, leaving behind a parking lot full of people who finally understand what they lost. Hours later, the CEO sits alone in her office. The city stretches endlessly beyond the glass walls, but she doesn't see it. Her mind replays the moment, over and over again. The laughter, the dismissal, the mistake. She opens an old file on her tablet. Daniel Parker, lead engineer candidate. Rejected. Her jaw tightens. For the first time in years, she feels something unfamiliar. Regret. Not because of the money lost, not because of the opportunity missed, but because she failed to see a person beyond a title. She closes the file and stands. Some mistakes demand more than silence. They demand humility. That evening, a knock echoes through Daniel's small apartment. He opens the door. The CEO stands there. No assistance, no confidence armor. "I was wrong," she says quietly. Daniel listens. Not defensive, not hopeful, just present. She apologizes, not for the business decision, but for the disrespect. "For laughing," she adds. Daniel nods. Apologies don't erase the past, but they can change the future. "We want to work with you," she says. "On your terms." Daniel thinks carefully. No weekends, no late nights, and respect for every worker in that building. She agrees, without hesitation, because she finally understands. True leadership listens. Weeks later, Daniel stands in a new office. Chief engineer. But the title doesn't matter. What matters is Noah, standing proudly at a science fair, holding first place. "My dad taught me never to give up," Noah says. Daniel smiles, because the greatest thing he ever built wasn't an engine. It was a future. The announcement spreads through the company like wildfire. The janitor is the new chief engineer. People stop mid-walk. Conversations freeze. The same man they walk past every day without noticing is now leading the future of the company. Some feel inspired. Others feel ashamed. Daniel Parker doesn't celebrate. He simply shows up to work the next morning. Same calm walk, same quiet focus. But this time, eyes follow him with respect. Not because of his title, but because of what he endured without bitterness. Lawyers gather. Documents spread across long tables. Patents, blueprints, timestamps. Daniel's work speaks louder than arguments. The truth is undeniable. He built it first, and quietly. Within months, the case is settled. The value is confirmed. $2.3 billion. But Daniel feels nothing change inside. Money never built his character. Hardship did. The world expects transformation. New house, new car, new life. But Daniel keeps the same apartment, the same Mustang, the same priorities. Because success didn't raise him. It revealed who he always was. Noah still rides beside him every morning. That is wealth. The gym echoes with applause. Noah holds his trophy tight. First place. His project, a miniature hybrid engine. Inspired by his father. Daniel stands in the back, smiling quietly. Pride doesn't need noise. It needs meaning. The company's ceremony, the CEO stands before thousands. "I judged a man by his uniform," she admits. "And I was wrong." She points to Daniel. This is what real talent looks like. The crowd rises. Applause fills the hall. Daniel bows his head, not in pride, in humility. Janitors, security guards, cafeteria workers. They approach Daniel. "Thank you," they say. He shakes every hand. "You always mattered," he replies. Sometimes change begins with one person being seen. A young custodian approaches. "People laugh at me too." Daniel smiles gently. "Build anyway. Believe anyway. Your worth isn't your job. It's your effort." The young man walks away taller. At the Science Museum, crowds gather. At the center, Daniel's engine. On display, plaque shining. Noah reads it slowly. "Dad, that's ours." Daniel nods. "Yes, we built it together." The